If I gain weight, I want it to be because I ate something really tasty. Ooh, ice cream. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. Being a YouTuber is pretty fun at times. Oops. Since amputation, I've been gaining weight. Even though I'm not obese, the extra weight is problematic. When you're an amputee, you want your weight to stay as consistent as possible so your prosthetic socket will fit. My weight has been steadily going up. The bigger problem is that my doctors are wondering if my weight gain indicates a lurking medical problem that hasn't yet been uncovered. Rephrased, my weight is a symptom, not the main problem. And to be clear, I'm not saying my weight gain is dramatic, only that it isn't making sense. Question for you. If you regularly did high-intensity workouts throughout the week, plus did manual labor several hours a day, plus started walking on prosthetic leg, which burns significantly more calories than walking on normal legs, plus inwardly you're half rabbit as evidenced by how you tend to eat from the salad end of the food pyramid, plus you avoid carbs and sugars, plus you've worked with a dietitian to make sure you're gaining enough protein and nutrients while your body heals from amputation, how does it add up? Increased activity should increase muscle mass, which should improve metabolism. Your energy expenditure has gone up, but your caloric intake is low. Should you A, lose weight, or B, gain weight? If you said A, then not only are you wrong, but maybe you can understand why I'm confused. Something in this equation isn't adding up. My doctors added an endocrinologist to my team. Turns out, I'm not crazy. It's all relative. My body really is being weird. Aside from the factors I talked about in a previous video, such as the effects of medication and being in a wheelchair for years, it turns out that my thyroid is lower than ideal, and that I have metabolic syndrome and the insulin resistance that goes along with it. The underactive thyroid explains not only the weight gain, but also some random things I've been wondering about, like why my voice has been going hoarse for the past year or two, or why my whole body aches. A low thyroid is even linked with depression. For a few months, I've been experiencing neuropathy in my only foot, along with pretty awful phantom pain in my dead foot. I'm a little protective of the limbs I have left, so I was understandably alarmed when my foot kept going numb. It was different than what I experienced with complex regional pain syndrome, but still concerning. Turns out that insulin resistance is associated with neuropathy. Likewise, metabolic syndrome explains why my blood pressure, which always used to be in the 90s, started reading in the 130s. Many other symptoms flew under the radar post-amputation because stress or medications can increase blood pressure. Being sedentary in a wheelchair correlates with weight gain, and it isn't surprising to be depressed after limb loss. There's so much overlap in symptoms that it wasn't obvious at first that there were other problems in the mix. Not until Jiu-Jitsu came along. I want to get back to feeling like my body is athletic, regardless of the number of limbs. That, interestingly enough, has not been changing quickly with Jiu-Jitsu. My weight gain has been pretty stubborn about not wanting to come off. I guess what I'm trying to say is the real problem isn't per se the weight as much as it's a symptom that something in my body is not doing what it should. And I've been pursuing that with various different doctors, and we've started to get some answers. So Jiu-Jitsu helped me figure out that that was going on, which was amazing. I mean, my simple desire to choke people out and make them tap has really paid off. This is how Jiu-Jitsu helped me. It made it obvious that my body wasn't responding normally even after increased exercise. Without Jiu-Jitsu, I might not have realized just how weirdly my body was behaving. I might not have talked to the doctors about it, and I might not have found out about the underlying medical issues until they'd gotten far worse, which just goes to show that we all need more arm bars in our lives. Right? You totally agree with me. When you start a new exercise program, the guideline I've always heard is that it takes 6 weeks to start seeing significant changes. I was doing 6 hours a week of intense jiu-jitsu workouts that left me and everyone else in class panting and drenched in sweat. I was definitely burning calories. Then my husband and I bought this house. I started spending 10 or 12 hours a day painting, plastering, ripping out carpet and stuff like that. Meanwhile, I was eating a nutritious, low-carb, sugar-free diet. Due to chronic nausea that's been around a couple years, I was only eating about 1,200 calories per day. That's pretty low, so I've been working with a dietitian since before amputation to make sure I'm getting enough nutrients despite the low calories, so my body won't go into starvation mode. My goal with the dietitian wasn't to lose weight, but to make sure my body had what it needed to heal. As my activity level increased, I feared that between all the exercise and how few calories I was eating, the post-amputation weight would start coming off. Instead, I kept gaining. This is why I was feeling frustrated in the last video I made about weight. I'd gone from 119 pounds to 146 pounds while exercising and living off salad and protein supplements. I suspect the weight gain would have been greater if it hadn't been for the chronic nausea that prevented me from eating a normal number of calories. Thyroid problems make my body feel miserable. Insulin resistance is messing with my only foot, and metabolic syndrome is a big deal because of the heightened risk for conditions like diabetes and heart disease. I'd prefer to confront this triforce of trouble now rather than wait for things to get worse. Let's get started. My doctors and I have a game plan. I'm limited on what more I could be doing on my end, which is why some timely medical intervention is in order. I was told that insulin-resistant patients are usually given insulin in the form of a drug, but there's another option. What if insulin was given in the form of a hormone directly into the bloodstream? The same doctor who saved my only foot from CRPS by giving me bisphosphonate infusions also offers physiologic insulin desensitization, or PIR infusions. These are much more available than the bisphosphonate infusions, and thankfully my insurance was willing to cover them, despite fighting me all year about covering a prosthetic leg. I'm sure I'll make a follow-up video reporting back on my experience, so subscribe and click the bell if you want to see the outcome. I'll link it too. This will be a long process, and I'm not sure how quickly I'll see improvements in my symptoms, but having something to try gives me hope. If nothing else, I feel less helpless. The moral of today's story isn't really about weight. It's that you can't always look at a person and tell what they're struggling with, and also that it's important to listen to our bodies. If you have a gut feeling that something is wrong, start looking for answers. Rationalizing our experiences or dismissing our symptoms is unlikely to lead to improvement. I could have said that because my weight gain wasn't dramatic, it wasn't worth investigating. Thankfully, I didn't. I'm blessed that my hidden problem wasn't more serious, like cancer, but I'm still grateful that I followed my hunch and found out what was going on. If you have a story about when you followed a gut feeling, I'd love to hear it in the comments. We're all dealing with something, and I wish you all the best with whatever you're going through. I'm Stefanina. Thank you for joining me on my amputee adventures. And here's a playlist about this topic if you're interested. Goodbye. The nice thing about a wheelchair is you can do the glide out of frame.